I'm here today at the Nash Partnership to find out more about the Northleach development, but first things first, let's find out a little bit more about Edward Nash. So Edward, tell me, what was it that inspired you to take this career path?
Well, I'm an architect, and my mother told me that I started talking about being an architect from the age of 4 when I noticed that in one of the streets where we lived, somebody had made the decision to use square downpipes rather than round downpipes houses. I thought this was a very important decision and that I wanted to be the person who made that kind of decision. I suppose really what I mean is that I've always been fascinated by the variety of the built environment, why buildings look different in one part of the country from another, and buildings have different uses of course, but they have different hierarchies and different degrees of status. I just find this endlessly fascinating, and my career really has been built on trying to understand what are the forces that create the built environment. For me, the sort of romantic dream of being the creator of buildings was really quite important. And so I think when it comes to designing individual buildings now, I'm always interested in the way the building contributes to the richness of the whole.
So tell me a little bit more about the Nash Partnership.
Architecture is a very long training, and I knew it was a long training. I wasn't in any hurry, and I made sure in my early life, as well as architectural practice experience, I got experience in landscape design and in planning and regeneration as well. And I think one of the most significant things that happened early on was the recession before last, where suddenly great waves of British manufacturing industry became available for redevelopment. And a lot of these sites had been in historic industry for centuries, and we got the opportunity to take those sites forward into new areas. Some of these were in the Cotswolds as well. There was one particular site, 19 acres of historic industrial buildings, 38 individually listed buildings, all on one site, amongst woods and streams and rivers and dams and lakes and all sorts of things. Absolutely fascinating experience, you know. This was a complete industrial village. People had worked there, but they'd also lived there as well. And this was one of the things that gave me my first serious taste to the architecture of the Cotswolds.
So with the Northleach development, what did you have to take into consideration?
Northleach is a very pretty small town. And people like living in small towns because there is a compactness about them, there's an access to the countryside and a range of facilities and a community life that appeals to people. Our development is on one of the fringes of Northleach, and we also wanted to make sure that it had a sense of its own identity and did feel like a neighbourhood itself. It's a group of 40 houses, and that's enough for a neighbourhood quality to develop. And so right from the start, how the streets within the development are arranged is very important. We have 4 streets that all come together in a little courtyard at the centre, which is a natural place where people will meet. Everybody who comes and goes will pass through there, and that means the ability to meet your neighbours and make friends and so on is that much greater. It also means that all the streets are effectively cul-de-sacs, which slows down the traffic speeds, makes them safer for children to play. The other thing I'd say about this particular site, it does have tremendous views, looking down a lovely valley and falling to the south. And that again, a very important part of what we're doing, thinking about each house, how the sun will enter the house from one side and leave it on the other side, making sure that trees can be planted in people's gardens where they're not going to shade other people too much. All these kind of things matter. And as we go through this process, which lasts several months, we can test it out using 3D models and computer models and so on, doing shadow drawings and all sorts of things to really try to make each house work really well for the people who find themselves living there through what might be several generations. One of the things about the Northleach project is it's 40 houses altogether, but they're very different in size. And in fact, out of those 40, we have 20 different plans and sets of elevations. So at most, 2 houses are the same, but in fact I don't think any of them are the same, because each house will be slightly different from the house that might otherwise look the same, because it's got a window in a different place because of where it is and so on, or its relationship with the garden may be slightly different from where it is. I'm a keen gardener myself, particularly growing fruit and vegetables, and I take the relationship between house and garden really seriously. I think My ideal really is to have a house where you open the front door and you can look right through the house and see the garden straight away, and you can see the sun shining in the garden. On a nice day, you have the front door open and the back door open, and the fresh air is blowing through, and so on, and you're getting the maximum enjoyment about the relationship of your house to its garden and where it is in the topography and in the landscape, and so on. And I find in some developments you find the only way to get into the house is through the utility room, for instance. Well, that seemed to me a complete missed opportunity to enjoy and celebrate the garden at all times of the year. So in Northleach we've got a lot of situations where you can see the garden very well from your primary rooms. You can get into it very easily, sometimes from more than one place.
So what do you take into consideration with the interior layout?
Flexibility is the key. And this is particularly manifest at the ground floor, where the primary functions of kitchen, family meals, maybe occasionally more formal dining, a sitting room, and so on. But you can manage those uses in so many different ways. With Freeman's, we're particularly keen to make it possible for those spaces, those functions, all to flow in together. So that if you've got a full house or a party, everybody can feel they're in the same space, but you can close those spaces down with doors and screens and things to meet the day-to-day needs of the house, of homework and study and music practice, all those kind of things that have to happen. The same building can accommodate those, and people know they have those choices right from the start. That's always been very important to us. And you can apply the same philosophy in the upper levels of the house as well, in terms of a range of bedroom size, a range of bathroom opportunities, the opportunities for a study. Some people want to study on the ground floor so they can receive visitors if they're working from home without the rest of the house being interfered with. Some people prefer their study to be somewhere quieter upstairs. We like to think about all these things, and ideally we would be able to accommodate that flexibility in any of our houses.
And what was it like working with Freeman Homes?
Well, they're great fun, really. I've met some really fantastic people there who just really enjoy what they do, and I think it's partly because they've been doing this for quite a while, so they know all the things they need to know about getting houses and developments built, and they're really interested in just all the things they can do to make that process work better for all their customers, for all their workforce, and for where they take the operation that they're doing. One of the things that's impressed me the most is that it's clear for them that every site is treated almost as if it's the first one they've ever done, which is a ridiculous thing to say because clearly they're building on all the experience they have. But I think it's very healthy to do it that way. It's quite easy for house builders who are churning out houses by the 100 to just think that one development is just like the next and so on. But it's really important that somehow everybody involved realizes that one particular town, one particular street, one particular development, one particular house needs that sort of freshness of thought, which comes from understanding what it is at a particular point in time people are looking for, and what it is in a particular place a development can actually offer and bring forward. There's something very transformational about building new houses and so on. People are going to live in them for many, many generations, and you know, that's many people's lives that you're affecting. And I just get the feeling, probably more than many of the people I've worked with, Freeman's kind of understand that, and that's what part of their energy is driven towards. One of the fascinating things about Luke Freeman is he really seems to understand how people like to live and how the spatial arrangements in a house, the arrangement of the rooms, the impression the house makes from the outside, how that all serves that understanding of how people want to live.